Welcome to the Meg and Maggie podcast, where we bring you conversations of overall wellness. We believe in challenging the all or nothing approach to our health by focusing on simple and sustainable practices for your everyday life.
We are so happy you're here with us. Now let's get into today's episode. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Meg and Maggie podcast. We are so happy you're here with us today. And today we are talking about a conversation that just kind of popped up in life, so we were like, let's talk about it today. But that is how to support other people and, people that you care about when people need you, and how to do that without completely losing yourself, right? Mm-hmm. Because I know for me anyway, I used to, and still sometimes, get stuck in, okay, I have to drop everything to be there for this person who needs me right now, right? And I care so deeply about other people, especially the people that are close to me, that is truly what I want to do, right? I truly want to drop everything to be there to support them. But when I do that, I am really doing myself a disservice, right? Because I'm stopping my whole life. I am just pushing everything for me to the side, and then I'm not able to even show up fully for them and do a good job of supporting them, right? So that is what we want to talk about today.
I'm happy we're talking about it because I think it's very relatable, and of course, we're going to run into conversations on boundaries with people, and even we were saying before we recorded, like technology and just things that we can kind of put up as little like barriers to kind of guide us to stay more in alignment and centered within ourselves. But I think that it's more common than we realize, right? Like, I think that we run into this more often than we think. Mm-hmm. And I also think that it's a very slippery slope, because once you start to like let all your boundaries go and you're just always open to hearing, gossip or venting sessions or this or that, you oftentimes don't notice how far deep you are until you're like hitting like a red button of like, oh my gosh, I'm overwhelmed. I'm feeling all their emotions and they weren't even mine. And like, until you're in like, okay, wow, this is too much mode. It's like too late because you're already overwhelmed and completely lost in other people's stuff. I picture, it sounds terrible, but it's the truth.
Okay.
I picture a lot of times, this brings me back to my school psych days of working in the schools. If you've worked in a school, or if you are a teacher currently listening to this, or if you are someone in a school district or any place that has a lot of people, specifically a place that has a lounge for employees. It doesn't even need to be a school. That's just where I think of it. Okay. That's what I picture when this comes up. I picture like one of those lounges where you go in and everyone has lunch. And most of the time, a lot of times, people just go in there and dump all of their negative stuff in these rooms in conversations. I don't know. What are those called in an office? Break room?
Yeah, like the break room, or like yes. In my corporate experience, this was like the kitchen area, when everyone got up and went into the kitchen. Yeah.
That's where I picture this a lot. Unless you work in like a really healthy, good culture type place. A lot of people walk into those places and they're like, this is going wrong and this is going wrong. And they just kind of like word vomit everything that's bad in their life to you there. And that's what I picture when we have this conversation.
Yeah, that definitely does happen frequently. And that is one place where I've noticed for myself, and this is not something that I'm perfect at, but it's something that I try to be intentional about, because I notice that if I am in that environment frequently where I'm surrounded by people just dumping and talking negatively and complaining, obviously that's going to happen. And I do it too, right? Mm-hmm. But I really intentionally try not to do it often and not to surround myself with people talking in that way, because it really just brings down my energy in general. And that sounds a little bit like fluffy and woo woo and whatever, but really like my energy, my being is me. And that is my whole life and my whole experience. And I don't want to spend it in a low vibrational, yucky feeling space. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like it's important that we get things out and we talk about things and we have community to share problems with. And I think at the same time, it's important we recognize that and set boundaries around how we can share and also how we can help and support and receive.
I think I'm happy that we're starting here because I think a lot of our listeners, when we say like protecting your energy or, keeping yourself afloat with boundaries and putting things in place, I think a lot of times we go to the negative first of like protecting our energy from negative stuff, but that's not always the case. So let's like stay here for a moment because I think it's worth being here for a second. But then I want to get into just regular, like protecting yourself for being there for someone in a good way, even when they may not be going through something terrible at all. But I think what our listeners would really appreciate, because I really appreciated this and needed this for a long time, is how do we kindly put boundaries into place with things like that. So the most common example is probably going to be, you're around people, you're around one person who's just really like, you're not loving their energy. It's kind of bringing you down. Every time you leave, you're like, oh, like that's not what I was looking for. Like, I don't feel great after that. What are some tangible ways that you, Maggie, have been able to navigate those tricky situations with people when you don't want to be ugly, you don't want to be unkind, you don't want to be like, well, I mean, I guess if they really made you upset, you could say some unkind words. But for just the general everyday situations, what is your best way to navigate that?
I feel like there's two ways that I would typically go about this. One way, if it's not someone I'm particularly close to, or I don't have a really developed relationship with them, I'll probably slowly just stop spending time with them. Like that's probably how I would approach that situation. And, because I feel like with someone that I have a relationship with, that I am close with, there needs to be some sort of conversation about it, right? Especially if there's someone I want to continue in my life and I'm just not liking this particular dynamic that's occurring, right? But if it's acquaintance or, someone you can avoid in the office or the school or something, like I probably would just stop hanging around them. That's probably what I would do in that situation. But if it's someone that I'm close with and someone that I want to have a relationship with, and there's just like a situation going on that's acute or, just like a new pattern that's coming about, I would address it not when it's happening. Right. So whenever you want to talk to someone about something, from what I've learned and from my experience, when we do it in the situation, we're primed to get defensive. Right. Because like we feel like we're being attacked. And when you're the person addressing it, the other person gets defensive. So then you attack. Right. And it doesn't need to be that way. So I find what works better is addressing it when the situation is not present at all and everyone's in a good mood. Right. Because then you're more likely on both ends to have a productive conversation instead of just like attacking and defense and things like that.
I like that. I like that a lot. And it's making me think of, so we don't have to spend too much time here. It's making me think of our Staying True to You during the holidays episode. So if you go back to right around December, we did a Staying True to You during the holidays. And then I think we did another one of like navigating food, family, and something else during the holidays. So we actually talked a lot about these types of conversations related to food, body image, what's going on with you. So as you were speaking, Maggie, I was like, wait, like I remember we did a whole episode that had a lot of that awesome tangible information in it. But I agree with you. I also think sometimes one of the best things that I can do is like kindly like excuse myself. Like, oh, I've got to do this. And that can seem kind of like passive or like the easy way out. But if it's not someone that's very close to you, sometimes I just think it's easier to just like, stay in different lanes with some people. Now, when we are talking about people which is really the meat of our episode anyways, people that you love and care about, this becomes a different situation. So for anyone that is listening, when you are talking about a sister or a brother or a daughter or a husband or a mom or dad, whoever it may be, like people that are really, really close to you, best friends, even good friends, this is where I think it can get really tricky and where we really wanted to have the bulk of our conversation be centered around. And so to start it, Maggie, I'm thinking the best way to kind of like get this going is thinking about when someone comes to you in any way, right? And you are not in a place, you just know you're not in a place for happy, sad, anything, just any kind of like energy exchange for a moment, or you need just like a very little amount. One, how do you know let's start there. How do you know you need that?
Yes, because how can we enforce any sort of,
Right.
boundary if we don't even know what we need?
Right.
For me, trial and error, lots and lots of error and reflection, lots of analyzing how a situation went just now or last week or last month or whatever,
Mhm.
and, paying attention to the sequence of events and what happened and how I felt. And from there, if I can gather information on how previous situations went and how I felt during it, after it, all that type of stuff, then I can better predict what I need in this moment. Right.
Mhm.
But it's not something that we're going to just know all of a sudden, right? Like you're not just going to be like, oh, well, today I know exactly how I'm feeling and exactly what I need. And so, no, I can't talk to you today, or I have all the energy in the world. Like that, at least for me, that is not how it goes at all.
Mm-mm. No, and I really love that you're saying trial and error because it's exactly what it is. There's no like perfect map to how to do boundaries with people. It's messy. That's why they're boundaries. Like it's hard, but I know that they're necessary, right? Because if you have none and your energy is just constantly open for anything and everything, you will feel the effects of that. And if you're not able to identify what you need, that's where you have to start. There's no way to say, oh, I need this boundary unless you're somewhat in touch with yourself. So spending some time there, I think, is really important. But at the same time, as you put the boundaries in place, you learn more about yourself as you go. So I really appreciate what you're saying because there's nothing we're going to say to you today that's like the magic potion for boundaries. Like it's like hot dumpster fire for lack of a better word sometimes. But that doesn't mean that that's making it sound negative, and it doesn't need to be, right? If you are in a situation with someone whom you love, friend, partner, kids, just anyone, you're going to have love and patience on both sides, hopefully, which is why you have a relationship with them. That should be like the foundation. And they will, since they love you, I don't want to say they will or they should because that's not always the case. But ideally, if you are sharing your energy with someone who you love, they will respect what you are trying to do. So, for example, I have really learned a lot from my own friends and people around me who have their own boundaries. I actually really respect the hell out of boundaries. Not everyone does, but now that I'm in a place where I am around really a group of really amazing people. Most of the people who I'm around are very self-aware. And so they will say things like Maggie, for example, her and I have a podcast. You may assume that we are just like constantly on the phone and constantly talking. And it's just like, limitless, boundaryless in a lot of ways, but it's not for us. I mean, we're not like rigid with each other by any means, but we're very respectful of each other's energy and time and emotion. So one thing that I have always really appreciated about you, Maggie, is, for example, if I sent you, a whole text stream of ideas and content stuff when I'm really lit up, right? And then you text back, hey, I'm not in a place to go through this right now, but I'll get back to you soon. That's Maggie's way of kindly saying to me, hey, Meg, you're really lit up and excited right now. And that's awesome. So thanks for texting me, but I'm not in that place right now. So I'll get back to this when I can. Like, sorry. No, those listening on YouTube can see that I'm just like speechless and like mic drop moment. Those of you who are hearing me, like, genius. Like, what?
Thank you. It's taken a lot of practice, because I definitely used to and still sometimes fall into I have to respond right now because someone needs something from me right this moment. However, through the trial and error and the reflection, I have learned that in that particular situation, when it comes to work things, if I'm not in the mood, I'm not going to produce anything of any quality. I'm not going to have any decent conversations whatsoever. And if I were to respond to you and your ideas in that moment when I'm not feeling it, I'd probably just have some criticism about everything you said. which is not genuine, right?
Yeah.
But it's not genuine because I want to be able to look at, if you're in a creative flow and you're sending me all these ideas, I want to be able to look at them from a somewhat similar lens, right?
Mhm.
Obviously, it's important to have constructive criticism and feedback, and we feed off of each other and, make sure things are in alignment and on brand and all that stuff. But I don't want to just bring my negative energy or just like lack of a lot of energy in general, doesn't necessarily have to be negative, into something so positive. Like, it's so much better, like, choose your heart, choose your battles. I am just going to say, I am going to get back to this when I can. And everything's better. Everything is better.
And if you are someone, I'm picturing someone right now who's in maybe a situation or a friendship where a friend will, what do they call them? Rage texts, right? Where you just, not that they're raging at the person, but I think they call them rage texts, where it's like you just like text like a million miles an hour and you just like send off a bunch. Yeah.
Like someone's just like ranting through text message.
Through text, which like sounds like my personal hell. I hate texting in general. So to text out a whole essay just sounds like absolute, like my worst nightmare. But people do that. So I'm picturing someone right now who maybe has a friend who does that a lot, where they'll just like word vomit everything. And then you're like, oh my gosh, I have a 50-page paragraph to get back to. And I don't want to, but I love this friend. This is where boundaries are so important, because as their friend, of course, you want to be there for them. You want to hear everything. You want to, be able to process and empathize and, maybe offer some wise words or just listen. That is a lot for anyone to process, even a few texts, right? Even one text. If you're not in a place where you want to respond right away, give yourself time. And if you want to be respectful of that friend and be like, I'm here for you, I see this, I need some time just because of my own self. Someone who's in a loving, relationship with you or friendship with you, I would hope would respect that, because I would respect it for them. And that may be a core belief difference if you guys have different views on that. For example, my mom is listening. She'll be listening to this on her way to work, like she always does. And she'll hear me talk about her on the podcast. And I love you dearly, Mom, as you listen to this on Monday morning. We sometimes have different layers and boundaries, because my mom thinks boundaries are the stupidest thing that was ever created. And I think that they're wonderful. Okay. She doesn't actually think they're stupid. She just doesn't want them with me. Like, she doesn't want to have any boundaries with us too.
I can get that,
Right. And so we really don't, like, we're very close and we don't really have too many, but sometimes I do need to have a couple, and she has a very difficult time with them sometimes. So for example, and then vice versa, I can do it to her sometimes. So for example, like if she doesn't answer my phone call, I will shamelessly call my mom 3 more times. Okay. I won't do that to anyone else. I will do that to my mom. We lack some boundaries with each other. And I think that I've gotten to a place, and she knows this through me communicating it, that sometimes we talk every single day, sometimes twice a day. And I love it. Most days, like, I absolutely look forward to every single phone call, text. Like, I adore our relationship. Then there's some days where I'm feeling low, or maybe I'm feeling really sad, or I'm feeling overwhelmed with excitement and I'm busy working and I'm just like in my own little world. I now will text her and say, I love you so much. Can we text for tonight? Right. And so it's a way of saying, hey, I love you. It's nothing personal. I'm just like doing my own thing tonight. And she usually write back something like, you do you, girlfriend. And she means it in a kind, loving, funny way. But it wasn't always like that. At first she was like, you want to do what? You want to not talk? Why? What? Well, like, it was not easy in the very beginning. So if you have that relationship with anyone, it can be so helpful for you to tailor that accordingly, to take care of yourself first.
Yes. Thank you for sharing that. That was very pleasant to listen to. You share your relationship with your mom. I really enjoyed that. And I think, the other side of it too, is it just shows that relationships are so dynamic, right? And we all have so many dynamic, constantly changing relationships. And as soon as you think you have it figured out, it's going to change. Mm-hmm. As soon as you think you have it figured out, it's going to change. So I think, when we can come to terms with that, and we can accept the fact that the boundaries are always going to change, how you're feeling is always going to change, how much energy you have is always going to change. and just do the best that we can in every situation and not hold on too tightly to, what someone says to you or how you think maybe you made them feel and all that kind of stuff. We can just get back into a general respect for other human beings, especially the ones that we care for and that care for us, and honesty, right? Just being honest, true to ourselves, and just, giving people the benefit of the doubt and not holding on so tightly to every little word, every little action, and, not being so hurt by everything everyone does. It's not usually about us, right? Like we have to set boundaries with other people because of us. Other people have to set boundaries with us because of them, right?
Yes.
And so it's not always about us. And I think that's just so important to remember.
And I think too, sometimes it's things that are, so another example, I have my best friend in the entire world, Tabby. You may be listening to this one, you may not be. She's another person who it took her a little bit longer with boundaries because she is more similar to you, Maggie, I would say, in the sense that like she also dies for the opportunity to be there for someone. Like it is part of her love language. Like she wants you to know that you are loved. So she will drop everything in her life to be there for you, like ride or die type stuff. And it's one of my favorite things about her. But at the same time, she's learned, and as we both are learning, how to kind of implement that. And I even remember I reached out to her a couple weeks ago about something that I was so excited about. And it was like an opportunity for us both and something that like I was really like, oh my gosh, she's going to love it. It's going to go great. Like I had this whole scenario made out in my head of how it was going to go. And she texted back and said, I can't, something like, I don't even know if I can like pull up the text because it was so good. She said something about, bear with me, everyone. It's not that important, but how she worded it was so perfect.
I'm excited to hear this.
Yes.
I love watching people grow when it comes to things like this. It's one of my favorite things.
I know. Also, I hope, Tabby, I hope you don't mind me sharing this. She won't, but
we love you.
She said, I don't have much energy right now to feed into that, but I might down the road. And it was just like, it was so not what I had expected, yet the amount of like proud feelings that I had of her to say to her best friend, who she loves more than a lot of people, to say, I don't have the energy for this right now. Maybe in the future. I was like, fuck yeah. Like I respect the hell out of that. And that is why we are very good friends, is because we allow that space for each other, right? We want what's best for each other, period. And I think that's the foundation sometimes, Maggie, that we need to mention. I don't want to mention it, but we need to. Not every relationship in your life is going to be one that lasts a lifetime, that is wonderful and is meant for you forever, right? There are some friendships that are going to come and go. There are some relationships that are going to come and go. There are some, unfortunately, family members that sometimes come and go. And when we are talking about these boundaries with people, I think the foundation is that you're like, you really adore one another and respect one another so much that you are willing to give space. That is when the boundaries, in my opinion, are the most worth it boundaries, because they're going to sustain your relationship for a long time.
Yeah, that makes so much sense too, because in putting boundaries in place and getting clear on what you want out of a relationship and how much you can give and how and all of that type of stuff, it takes a lot of work and a lot of energy, right? And so we can't just drop everything and be there for everyone. And we also can't put so much work and effort into having hundreds of that close of relationships, like you're going to know so many people, right? But how many of them are you actually that close to that you would drop everything for? Probably not that many, right? And that's okay.
I really love that. And I also, it's bringing up two things for me, two silly things. I'm really in like story mode today. Two things that it makes me think of. I oftentimes, and I've shared this on the podcast before, I have like the most interesting relationship with social media and texting and phones. Like I love it so much. And I also hate it at the exact same time. Like both exist for me at the same time.
Yeah.
And some days I'm like calling everyone, texting. I'm so social. I'm on Instagram. I'm like doing the thing. Then other days I'm like, I just want a house phone. And I only want about 5 people to know my house phone number. And I want them to leave me voicemails on an answering machine. I want to come home and see a voicemail from people that I love, and I want to see nothing from anyone else. Because if I look through my phone right now, the amount of text messages I have from the random people, right? Like random, like delivery drivers who drop things off, or like people at work, like acquaintances, like the number of texts that I have, or like Emma number 3, and then like where she lives. It's insane. And text messages, Glennon Doyle says this best. She hates text messages too. She says they feel like, I'm going to butcher what she says, but the overall theme is like constant, like annoying little pings of like, you need to do something. And maybe her and I just have a more dramatic view on them, because I also have a similar view. Some days I just want the people closest to me to have a simple house phone. And I will have a house phone soon. I promise you all, I will actually do this. But my other story is that as you get more familiar with who you are and what you want and what your needs are, you then can kind of like establish that in the very beginning when you meet new people. So for example, for me with dating, or anytime I've like talked about like, I'm talking to someone, or I'm thinking about maybe getting into a relationship with someone, I know myself so well now that I can literally say, if you're someone who likes to text all day long, it's a no for me. It's not going to work. Actually, if I could not hear from you until about 6 p.m. or 7 p.m. at night, that would be the most ideal for me. And a lot of people are like, what? Oh, okay. That's just me. Some people, if you didn't text someone until 6, 7 o'clock at night, they'd be like, well, you're dead to me. Right. Mm-hmm. But for me, I need that space. And I only know that because I know myself through trial and error, like you're saying. And so I really want to get into now, Maggie, we were talking about this before we hit record, going along with all this wonderful boundaries and taking care of ourselves and stuff like that. I think it's important to note of how we essentially, like, quote unquote, like prime ourselves or set ourselves up to keep our energy where we want it and to honor ourselves. Almost like, I think of it as like morning routines, which we can have a whole conversation just on that and how important they are. Because I feel it the most when I'm not in one, or I'm not like taking care of myself first thing in the morning. But I feel like those a lot of times allow me to set the tone of what I want from that day and what energy I allow in from anyone or anything.
Yes, absolutely. This is the practical part. This is my favorite. Because we have to, we talk about all the concepts and the boundaries and all that stuff, but what do you actually do? How do you actually take care of yourself? Right. Mm-hmm. And so there are so many things, like you said, there are a million different things we could talk about, and we could talk about this forever. But the one that you mentioned that I would like to start with is, like you just said, priming your day, your morning routine. What do you do in the morning to take care of yourself? Right. So for me, currently, I am in a place where I am realizing at this moment that my morning routine that I have been using is not cutting it anymore. Right. And so what I mean by that is, I'll just tell you exactly my morning routine and how it used to make me feel and how it does now. So I wake up in the morning. I do not go on social media right away. Okay. So I wake up, usually like drink some water, let the dogs out because they're going insane type of thing, and then I will use the bathroom, usually watch a video on the Bible app on my phone, which is just like a tiny little thing of the day, brush my teeth, get ready, get my gym clothes on. And then I usually am going to the gym in the morning. So I'm just packing my bag and I'm getting in the car and I'm going to the gym. And like the workout is kind of the end of my morning routine, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm just doing things that take care of me. It's super simple, just getting ready for my day. I do watch like the little Bible thing, which kind of gets me into some sort of just like spiritual mindset, not directly into all the things I have to do today. Right.
Yeah.
And I go work out. And that has been my morning routine. And for a while, I really, really liked it because it was super simple. It didn't take that much time and I didn't have to think that much. Like there weren't that many components, everything was just simple and fine. And now I am currently in a place of supporting other people more than I had been when I was doing this morning routine. Right. And so when I'm in a place of giving more, whether it's giving more to my work, giving more to people, giving more to really anything, I also need more time for me. Right. And so it's like this double-edged sword because there's only so much time in the day. And so now I'm giving more time out and I need more time in. So now there's really not a lot of time in the day. So I have to be really, really intentional about how I am setting myself up in the morning. Right. So I know right now I'm going through my morning routine and I still feel anxious. I still feel like I'm diving right into my day. I don't have a second that's not thinking about tasks or what I need to do, or I need to respond to someone or something like that. Right. So in order to not feel that way, because I don't want to feel that way first thing in the morning, I need to implement some more things into my morning that will help me feel grounded and spend some more time with me.
Mm-hmm. I think the most important part and the takeaway that I just took from you and what everyone probably takes from you every week is that when we get so locked into these quote unquote morning routines or these rituals or these ideas, I think we, and especially our listeners, gravitate towards, oh, well, then that's going to be it. And that's what's going to fix me. And that's what's going to save me. And when you always reiterate it in such a way of, no, that's your tool for right now and it's going to change and let it, right? Like, I think that that's so important, but I do want to bring a heavy dose of honesty to this podcast today. We are always honest, but I want to hit like some real things. I know what I need right now. I do. Mm-hmm. It is calling my name. I see it in dreams. I know that right now my body and mind is craving me to wake up very early before the sun is up. And it's begging me to take some time, wake up slow, have coffee, and move my body first thing in the morning. That has been calling me for weeks. I want to wake up at 5 a.m. and have that quiet time and go for even if it's just a 20-minute walk, whatever it may be. That is what I'm craving. What I'm craving and what I'm doing are two very different things right now. I know that that is what I need. My body's telling me, my mind's telling me, even like the spiritual side is telling me. I am hitting snooze and sleeping until, I don't know, 6:45, 6:30. And I'm waking up, running out of bed, quickly getting ready and rushing through my day. And I am feeling the effects of it. I am feeling the sluggishness from not moving my body first thing in the morning. I am feeling the drowsiness from, sleeping in a little longer than my body even really needed, probably. I'm feeling the craziness of, oh gosh, now it's, 8:00 at night and I'm still doing work on my laptop. Right? Like, I want to bring that honesty today because I don't want to get on here and be like, I know this is what I have to do, so I just do it. Like, no, I don't always do it. And that's just the truth. Like, I want to be relatable in that way because it's true, but I do know from experience that I will get back into what I need, and I need to do it slowly so that I can keep up with it, right? And I think that that's really important for our listeners to always hear and to always know. And so to relate that to our topic today of, taking care of yourself first and boundaries, a lot of times, just like what I'm saying, we already know what we have to do. Okay. If you get quiet enough and you hear yourself, you know that you need to say to that friend kindly, I love you so much, and I'm not in a place right now to have this conversation. Or I love you so much, but I can't talk every day on the phone. Or to your partner, I'm really sorry you're having a hard time at work, but I really can't hear about this every night. You've got to make some changes, or at least like find another way to vent because I can't hear about it too often. Like, those are really hard, honest conversations that we have to have. And I think we tend to make it more complicated than it needs to be. We all, in my opinion, innately know. We know what we need to do. It's actually doing it. I'm telling you that my whole body, mind, and soul is craving to wake up before the sun right now. And it's giving me the answer. And I'm not listening to it. Your body, mind, and everything, if you get quiet enough and you start to get to know yourself enough, you know what you need to do to take care of yourself so that you are not burnt out from life. Yeah. And then getting yourself to do it is a different conversation and possibly a great follow-up to this because it's a little more complex. And depending on who you consume, there's different schools of thought on this. There are some millionaire entrepreneurs who are going to be like, get your ass up and stop being lazy and, just go and do it. And then there's other people who are like, give yourself grace and listen to the birds and da, da, da. And like, I don't know what the answer is because I'm telling you right now that I don't know. But what I am saying is that there is a way to move towards it, which is always our message, right? Like there's no magical answer, but you will move towards whatever it is, as long as it's consciously in your mind.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that is the goal, right? That is the goal, especially when it comes to supporting other people, because chances are, if you're listening to this, you're someone who cares about other people and you care about yourself, right? And because if you don't, you're probably not here with us, So if you care about people and you care about yourself and you genuinely want to be able to support other people and be able to also support yourself at the same time, like you just said, if that is in your conscious awareness and that is what you want, you're going to get it, right? Mm-hmm. You're going to take actions that will help you get it. The best piece of advice that I have is put yourself first, fill up your own cup so that way you can help other people, right? Because we all get sucked into the trap of giving, having nothing left for ourselves, and then resenting the people we gave to, right? And resenting ourselves and not feeling good about any of the quote unquote good things that we did, right? And so if we can put ourselves first, even in the tiniest bits, right? You know that you need to eat whatever in the morning, eat it. You know you need to work out. You know you need to go to bed. You know you need to say, I will talk to you about this in an hour. Say, I will talk to you about this in an hour, right? And those things are really hard to do. But if we actually do them, like you said, if we hear what we need, right? And if we actually do them, it's going to make everything else so much easier. Go back to the choose your heart episode, right? Both of them are going to be hard and one of them is going to get you the result you want and one of them's not. And that's really what it comes down to.
And I also think that I believe it will be really beneficial right now to go through little ways, because I know we are like the queens of this. And even though I don't always grab for them, I know they're there, which is really helpful. Mm-hmm. And I think it'd be really helpful to our listeners to leave little tools of how we put ourselves first sometimes. I love that. And me too. And I know that you guys will be shocked with what we do because typically it's free. Most of the time it's simple. And it's things that you can do in your everyday life. So I'll go first. There are moments where I really like to just create a little moment for myself. And that can be something as simple as making a cup of tea really slowly and steeping it and putting in the honey and whatever. Or that can be as elaborate as I make this like incredible, okay, you didn't expect to get a bonus like recipe, but I'm going to give it to you. I make a whole moment out of my little like hot chocolate ritual, and it's unlike any hot chocolate you've ever had. And it's quote unquote, people would say it's healthier. It tastes better than any hot chocolate you've ever had.
All right. So I need to share now.
I'm going to share it. You go and get your favorite milk, right? I like a pasture raised whole milk. Put a little bit on the stove. I put raw cacao powder and a little bit of honey. It is to die for. And then you whip it with like the little bullet, and it just is like this moment for myself. And there's something so nostalgic about the hot cocoa that makes it feel almost like childlike. And it's just a really special, simple thing that I do, that it's taking 5 minutes away from work and people and all this stuff. And it feels like just cozy and right, and giving myself that moment, if that makes sense.
I love hot chocolate, and it's not something I will really have when it's warm out. So we're done with hot chocolate season, but in the winter, I absolutely love that. But I literally did this today. I was at the gym and I was feeling, well, before I even got to the gym, I was like, oh, I'm just having a day, like overwhelmed, overstimulated, way too many people need me, like way too many things going on, and I'm just like, I'm just going to go to the gym. I'm going to do my workout, and I'm not going to do it for a second longer than I have to today. You know what I mean? Like, it was just one of those, like, I just need to get this done and move on. Right. So go to the gym, get my workout done, leave the gym, get home. And I told myself, as I was leaving the gym, I said, I'm not going to use my phone until I get on this podcast with you, right? Like right before the podcast, check my phone, make sure there's no fires, and then we'll do this. And then I can like get back into all the other things that I need to do. Well, about 5 minutes later, my sister texted me like a very long text message, and it was something I actually wanted to respond to. So I was like, okay, well, there goes that. So I'm like, going back and forth, but I still was intentional about not using social media. So anyway, that was my first attempt of taking care of myself in a little way, and it didn't really work. Right. And so when I got home, I put my lunch, went to go heat up my lunch, and I made an iced chai latte. And so I just like put the water in the cup, heated it up, got the tea bag, set the timer, and I did it all just kind of slowly and very presently. And it's something that usually I would do while like scrolling on Instagram or something, but I didn't do that. I just set my phone down and I just made the tea, and it's right here and I'm almost done with it. And it made me feel so good because it literally took 5 minutes. But I was making something for myself that I really enjoy, and I just did it presently. I just made tea. That's it.
It's so funny because the next example I was going to give, it's all about being intentional. That is it. So if you are someone, and this goes beyond like, feeling like you're just tapped out and burnt out, this is just life in general of taking care of yourself. And it's oftentimes the simplest things. I have been feeling I've just been in a hard place. Honestly, I think everything that's going on in the state of our world, and then also, just everyday things, and I'm about to get my period, and just like the clusterfuck of it all, I've been feeling really low energy. And it's been hard, like to the point where I want to just like sleep much more than usual, which is like my gauge of like, okay, like this is getting really sad and I need to like, put some things in place. And it's funny how it's the simplest things that do it. So today I have been eating, I live alone, so keep that in mind. Me and Milo, my little dog. And I oftentimes will eat in my living room, like many people do, right? Like I'll eat watching TV, which I never used to do. But since living alone, I was like, well, it's weird to sit at the table by yourself. That was my belief. Well, today I was like, I can't do this anymore. And so I sat at the table and opened up the window and stared outside and ate my lunch. World of difference. And I know I've shared this story and I will share it again, but you all know, well, you may not have remembered when I was in my freshman year of college and I was like in a real, like I would say I was actually depressed, like not just sad, like I was in a state of depression. And I go to my like psych professor who I absolutely adore, and he's got his PhD and he's wonderful and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, help me, like, what do I do? And, I'm expecting him to give me this like world-renowned advice. And he told me to go for a 15-minute walk in nature every day for a little while. And it helped, right? I'm not saying it's going to cure everyone's depression, but it is the simplest things that we overlook a lot of times, like actually sitting down and tasting what a strawberry tastes like. Like I sat down today with my lunch and I eat vegetables all the time. I was like, damn, tomatoes are good.
Yes.
This is a good tomato. But when I'm mindlessly doing things on autopilot and I'm running through life and I'm shoving a sandwich down my throat in my car and almost choking on the highway, we're not. I'm saying that because that's actually happened and it's like my biggest fear is like choking in the car myself. Anyways, when you are in
and I've never thought of that before. I didn't need to think of that. Oh my God.
Don't. Now you're going to chew nice and slow because if God forbid you do, you're going to have to pull over and wave your hands. And anyways, okay, don't choke on anything, people. But taking your time to do anything or taking your time to say, I can't respond right now, but I will soon. It's all the intentionality of I am putting myself first and you are going to have to come second. Now, that does not mean when we say that, I want to like end with this. If my brother calls me in an hour, or my mom calls me in an hour and they need something that's serious, like a big deal, I'm going to drop my entire life and go help them, right? There are times where our boundaries go out the window. And I'm sure anyone listening who has children or a partner, like big stuff, your boundaries just kind of leave. And that's okay, right? But the everyday type stuff, I truly believe that putting yourself first inspires other people to do the same. And if it offends someone that you're putting yourself first, so for example, if Maggie texted me and said, "Hey, I can't answer right now. I need some time." And I was like, "Well, fuck you, Maggie. How dare you?" You know what I mean? Like, we wouldn't work out. Like,
No.
same kind of people, right? If I was offended and she was trying to take care of herself, our relationship would not sustain and you would not have our podcast, right?
Correct. Yes.
So keep that in mind as you go through life with people. If people are highly offended by you putting yourself first, are they your people? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Necessarily. And that doesn't mean you need to be anything, but it's just something to think about.
Yeah, that is a very great point. And the last thing that I wanted to end with here is when you are in the situation of needing support. Okay? So when you're in the situation of the person who needs a friend, needs a sister, needs whatever, right? If, like Megan just said, some things are so serious that like it's just everything goes out the window and you know who your people are to support you, right? Mm-hmm. But when we can get clear and more confident in knowing, is this a right this second situation, or is this a I need to talk about this today situation, or is this I need to talk about this week situation, yes. Right? When we are the person needing support, and it's one of those, right? It's not like a life or death. It's like a I need to talk about this soon type of thing. And I think you'd be the person to help me. It is so nice and makes the other person feel so respected when we can say, "Hey, I have this thing. I would really like to talk to you about it. Do you have time to talk to me today or maybe sometime this week?" Right? Mm-hmm. And just like give them a little bit of a heads up and ask for basically permission to put your things in their space, right? Mm-hmm. Because it'd be like if I came to Megan's house, just my car packed full of stuff and just like put all her stuff in her house and like never said anything to her about it. And I was just like, yeah, I'm just going to like leave this here for a little while. It's going to be fine. Right. And she'd be like, what? Where if I was like, "Hey, Meg, like I'm in a really tough situation and I have all this stuff. Like, would you mind if I brought it over to your house for a day?" She'd probably be like, "Okay, that's fine." Right. But we don't want to be the person who just like shows up with all the stuff without a warning. Right. So it's very nice when we're the person needing the support for just like a little bit of a heads up, a little, "Hey, are you free to talk to me about this today? Hey, do you have space to support me today? Hey, like I'd really love to talk with you about a situation I'm going through. Like, can you talk with me about it?" It goes such a long way.
It really, really does. And I'm so happy that you mentioned that because we almost forgot to say that. But it is such a respectful thing to do. And obviously know that when you have to start to learn, like, for example, everything to me used to feel like a crisis. Like everything that would go wrong, I used to be like, I got to call my top 5 people immediately, right? Shit's dying. And no one was dying and nothing bad was happening. That was to the extreme of that. And as you get to know yourself, you can kind of tailor like, okay, I don't need everyone to like drop their lives and leave work to talk to me right now. I can process through this. I can breathe. I can journal. I can read a book. Like I can take care of myself. But I really would like to talk to my friend this evening. And that's when you send the text, right? And that's when you also have to be able to know your needs and know that, okay, I really need to talk to this friend tonight. So please make time for me. And if you have a beautiful relationship, they will. Mm-hmm. Right. And one thing that I forgot to mention is I think another powerful thing that can be really tangible when you're not in a place that you are able to offer support in the way that you want to, but you have a resource for someone, that can be like one of the kindest things that you can give to someone. So for example, if a friend called me today and let's say they wanted to talk about their relationship, their body, right? Their, body image or eating stuff, something that they know I'm familiar with, but I'm not in a place to talk about it today, right? Like I'm actually struggling with my own thoughts and things are creeping back in and blah, blah, blah. I may refer them to a podcast episode or refer them to a book that I read or refer them to some other resource that's not me and explain briefly, hey, I'm not in a place where I can talk about this today, but this podcast episode helped me a lot a few years ago, right? Like yes. That can be such a kind gift to someone that makes them feel empowered, 1, because they get to now go and explore for themselves. But 2, it also makes them feel supported that you're not in a place for it right now, but you will be, and you want to circle back.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely. I love that so much. And yeah, there's so many ways that we can support people without, flipping our lives upside down.
Right.
And sometimes you have to flip your life upside down, and that's okay. But usually we don't. Right. And so,
Right.
yeah, all the relationships get better when we can figure out what we truly need and how to, approach it from a situation that's respectful to both ourselves and the other person. Right. And that's it.
I agree.
That's all. All right, guys. Well, that's all for today.
We love you all, and we will see you next week with another episode. Bye.
Bye. Thank you for listening to the entirety of this episode. If you found this episode valuable, please share it with a friend. Your support helps our show grow, and for that, we are extremely grateful. Please be sure to leave a 5-star rating and a review of the show. We'll see you next Monday with another episode of the Meg and Maggie podcast. Love, Meg and Maggie.